Hold on, you're muted.
Uh,
Okay, there.
Ooh, just unmuted myself. How'd you let that happen?
Do what?
It gave me the chance to unmute myself.
Oh. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I ordered it.
Oh,
They
okay.
only do curbside pickup
Okay.
at Sherwin-Williams.
Okay. Bye.
You want a better roller? Is that what you said?
I'm sure it'll be, yes, that'd be fine. Yeah, that'd be good. One that doesn't splatter. Hey, I love your background. Look at what's behind you.
Oh my Lanta. Like, I mean, seriously, we're one big PBS just special over here. Those are my, between upstairs and downstairs, I think I'm done with making my pre-recorded videos for my littles. So I think theirs is done. I'm just collecting stuff to make a slideshow and wrap theirs up. But those are for my trolls. So I got to figure out what we're doing there.
That is so great. It's so festive and pretty. And my background is like a paneled room.
A paneled room.
Not very much fun.
I got the sun. Hey, I have a question. So Truett sent me a lab, but it's really not due until this week, right?
Yeah, he always does that. He's always been that way, doing things way before they're due. So
well, I know, and then I'm like, okay, but were they supposed to turn in the Bible errors, or that was optional?
That was optional. Yeah.
Okay. So did you get did I send you a text or email of what they actually turned in?
I did get that. Sorry, and it's been so crazy here. We've been all up in arms over that whole thing. That I just didn't have it responded yet. So, but yeah, I'll update that.
I just wanted to make sure I'm all like, and I don't know if you went in there, some of those files, I mean, I found everything, but it was really weird. There was a whole bunch of duplicates, like, hey, they sent it to me through zip, and then it downloaded just the one, I don't know. So I tried to go through everything to say, what is actually supposed to be due? But
right, yeah. So I guess I haven't been in there at all this week. I was in there last week, and I'm gonna look and see what's there. We probably need to talk to them about it. Like, hello,
I don't know if like Kimberly's trying to like put it all in a zip file and send it, which would be fine, but then they were separate too, so.
I don't know. There's Rochelle's arm.
Woo!
Oh, do I need to unmute her? No.
Talk with your hands.
All right, I'm gonna go look at what's there in the thingy real fast.
Okay. The thingy. My Piran, you've aged. But you are rocking your glasses.
Okay, you're moving to Virginia, Becca?
Yeah, well, yes, Henry kind of dropped the bomb there in physical science, didn't he? We're like,
Henry?
Wait. Hold on, you're muted somehow. Did you? Okay. Wait. Oh, there you are. Okay. Yeah, we're like, Henry Lewis.
Is it husband's job or what is it?
Yeah, he got hired at HSLDA. So.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, he's pretty excited. I guess a friend of his sent him the link. I didn't even know. I was like, why did you, because at first it was kind of like, why did you send your resume to HSLDA? That's like in Virginia. And he was like, well, Brian just sent me the link and, and I just thought I'd send my resume in. So, at first we were like, well, he's not going to get it. They're not going to want him to, deal with somebody who has to move from Texas, but they did. So
That's
crazy.
awesome. Did he lose his job from all this stuff?
Well, no,
Oh.
he kind of got downsized. I guess they were doing a salary dump at his other company, and
Oh.
they it was like the week before all this started happening.
Okay.
Like a crazy coincidence, right? I don't know. So, and nothing had been happening. You know, he had one job interview, and we thought it was a shoe-in because it was at a company that he used to work for, and but he didn't get it. We were like, we were just like shocked.
Yeah.
And sometimes God has to say no in a painful way. So
Yeah.
Anyway, that really prepared us mentally, I guess, for Virginia.
Ah! Well, that's pretty exciting. There's trees out there, man.
I know, lots of them, and hills.
It's all about the trees. Ah.
I can't wait for a fall, to see
Yeah.
all the changing of the leaves. I miss that, because I grew up out, in the East Coast. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, I grew up in Buffalo and spent a little bit of time in Tennessee, and
Okay.
so yeah, can't wait
Cool.
to see that fall trees again.
It's pretty exciting job too, that to be able to contribute in that way.
Yeah,
You
I-
see-
he wanted something with a mission.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, it's kind of crazy. I've always told Darren, we can never live anywhere else but Texas as long as we're homeschooling. After we're done homeschooling, we can go wherever you want, because he's always like, we need to move. It's too hot down here. We need to go somewhere. And I was like, after we're done homeschooling. So
Are the Virginia laws funky?
there's testing that has to be done every year. The portfolio thing going on.
That's what Iowa was like.
Oh, really?
You had a choice. You could test or portfolio.
Yeah. And I think it's that way too in Virginia. And so I'm going to do the portfolio, I guess. But my kids have never done testing ever.
Yeah. My kids were too, well, I actually kind of regret that because, I don't know how your older ones did, but I feel like such a dork when it comes to preparing for SATs and how to get them to learn how to do this. Like,
Yeah.
I almost wish I would have been forced to be in touch with it, but
Yeah. We just, like with our older ones, we would just have them take the SAT for fun, starting their freshman year. That's what we've done.
oh, that's good.
So, and Henry has signed up to take the CLT this year. You heard of the CLT? The classical learning test.
Mm.
It's a new option for the SAT or the ACT.
Oh,
Not every college takes it, but it's becoming more and more popular. So he's going to take that. They offer it for 8th graders. So I thought, well, what the heck?
Cool. That's great. So we're waiting on Kimberly?
Yep, I think
She's
so.
not here, is she? Okay.
She's not. Yeah.
Did they get I'm sure they got the notice that it moved 30 minutes ahead, right? Or is this your normal time?
No. Yeah. This is okay, Laura. This is the funny
Normal.
thing. I guess Rochelle, I'm so glad all three of us were kind of like, woo. I sent an email because biology moved to 10 o'clock because we got another host. And so I thought, well, I'm taking biology's time slot. So I emailed Rochelle and Kimberly and I'm like, hey, is it okay if we have class at 2? And they're all like, sure, no problem. So then in the email, I put 3:30 to 5. Why?
But I saw when you said you want to have class, I saw 3:30. Do you want to have class
really?
at 3:30? Yeah, that's what
Maybe that's what I said.
and
But in my head, I was thinking 2 o'clock. Maybe I was saying 3:30 because at 3:30 that would have been an hour and a half. I don't know.
yeah, But I want to go back and look because I'm like, sometimes
Yeah.
when I look at emails on my phone, I don't read them very well.
Yeah. No, you know what?
You know?
God knows I probably did put 3:30. I mean, but in my mind, I was saying 2.
What is
So
it about
sorry.
this thing that makes everything, you know? Like, I don't know what day it is.
I
I
know.
don't know.
I know. Yesterday I was
Weird.
like, what's the date? I don't even know. Like I was like, I don't tell me the date. I don't know what it is.
Juno was doing, I guess I'm always a little bit spacey about time, but you know, when you're not leaving your house, it's even worse.
Yeah.
But like, I've been judging online debates for her,
Oh my goodness. I can't
and I'm
imagine
like
how hard that is.
putting signs everywhere, like it's at 4, it's at 4. 'Cause I have no idea what time, anything. Should I text her? Or
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
maybe it's happening to her right now.
Yeah.
Sure.
Did the one guy drop out who was trying it?
He was just, they were just checking us out for next year. So
Yeah.
let me text her.
What the heck?
Maybe Kimberly is also needs sticky notes. I know I do. I have a sticky note thing
Yeah.
in almost every room of the house.
Hey, did y'all ever find the biology solutions manual?
It turns out that so we had
Oh.
one Becky had it,
Okay, yeah, I think I
one
remember
assistant,
seeing that.
and she's new to everything this year, so I never dreamed she'd have it. And you know, like she hasn't been responsive because she's been going through health stuff, I think with Lyme disease. And
Whoa.
so I didn't even wait for her. I was just like, oh boy, let me help Karen. And I'm like texting everybody. And then finally Becky's like, I got it. I'm like, oh, okay. But I
I'd
think,
like to,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I'd like to know where mine is. I couldn't find mine.
Yeah, I think they discouraged us, you know, when Charmaine was teaching it, they were like, oh, you don't need it. So,
Oh, yeah.
because all Jeannie's tests were, you know, just a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're all different.
So,
Actually, I don't know. Her tests were, I mean, I don't think they were harder. I mean, they were they were challenging, but she gives more points than those solution manuals. So it's nice when you have a humongous amount of vocabulary
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
She would give at least, I think, 50 points versus our little solution manuals that give us maybe 17, 20 at the
Yeah.
most.
Yeah. Oh, she said they thought it was 4.
oh dear.
Surprise.
She
Now I
said,
know you said 3:30 this morning.
yeah, she said they thought it was 4. I told them 3:30, and then I told them 2. She said, I can't even.
I never saw, like Rochelle, I never saw 2. I only saw the 3:30.
Hmm.
I'm so glad you missed all of the drama.
That's good because I can't do 2. I'm getting off of my.
Ah, awesome.
I'll jump on while I'm teaching. Maybe I could Zoom. Have you tried to Zoom 2 different computers to 2 different meetings yet?
Oh man.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Nope.
Don't you love Laura's background? All of her festive looking suns and flowers back
Yeah,
there.
what is that from?
Well, it's my current PBS special, children's special. Now, over the last few weeks for theater, that's how I'm teaching theater is like all for the younger ones, instead of Zooming like this, I'm making pretty much like pre-recorded videos for them.
Huh.
And then downstairs is full on stage. Just, you know, I knew we did the floors for a reason. So, you know, redid the
Awesome.
floors. So downstairs is the stage so I can teach my musical theater class. But it's really sad because I did the sun and the clouds, but the kids in my class actually did the flowers. These are all our set pieces that were supposed to be for Trolls. I know. I don't think I'm ever going to write a little musical adaptation again because I wrote an adaptation for Trolls, like the movie.
Yeah.
So now we don't even really I'm going to put it in a movie slideshow kind of form, but it won't be the same. So it's sad. So I've decorated my house, the troll hats. I don't know. Look on my, well, I think I've only put it on my story, like literally cute troll hats for them, like hair.
Yeah.
Mm,
Man, but that's okay.
So strange.
you do it this fall, right?
Can you?
Well, I don't know because I don't know. I'm thinking now that I'm thinking taking a break with the fall. I'm out of everything. I'm gonna be homebound. No, I don't know. Maybe. But we're still like they're older, so they're like, sixth graders. They're fifth, sixth, and seventh graders. So like we can rehearse. It's just not the same like putting it on the stage.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Wow, I can't even imagine rehearsing through Zoom. I can't imagine
Mm.
how you do that.
So, like I said, well, if you see me waving my hands like this, it means hold.
Oh my
They'll
goodness.
start reading their script or doing something, they won't pay attention. You're like, and mute. I'm gonna mute you.
So you're a Zoom expert now.
I can do a lot of things on Zoom. I'm about zoomed out. I could care less about Zoom. I have
Yeah.
like tonight, like all of church and stuff, which is great. It really is. It's good to see your face, Rochelle. I mean, so great. But it's just not the same. And so it's just like these flat screens. Like I feel like I'm looking at more screens now than ever before.
Yeah.
And it's more like all of this stuff when you make video I'm working more hours than
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
And I know that's what all the public school teachers and anybody that's teaching on Zoom, you're pretty much working double what you usually do.
Yes.
It takes to set up and make sure everybody has their stuff. And
Yeah.
so I would love real people soon in
Yeah.
there soon.
I went to the lake with Harbor Lane Park.
Mm,
That's close to you.
yeah.
And with two of my boys. And Finn is like, because people were walking dogs and fishing and stuff. Finn's like, that's the first time I've seen a human, like a real live human, in weeks. I'm like, it is? Because I'm the only one that ever goes to the grocery store. So
Yeah.
he was just like, it's a real one.
You're like, but you can't touch him.
I'm like, yeah, that's gotta be weird.
You gotta be weird. Like, well, I know. You're like, what is it? The homeschoolers are like, not social distancing, but like social. What do we say? What's the whole deal? What do they throw us
Like,
under the bus for?
Socialization.
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 Yeah.
There you go.
Socialize.
Or now we're like, yeah, we're out. We're not going to do more. I guess this your speech and debate, like it's over. The season's all over.
We're waiting.
It's ambiguous. So it was all over. Like they canceled everything. But now, so Juna, I mean, the minute all this started, because we started quarantining the day after our last tournament, which was March 11th or March 12th.
Mm-hmm.
And she immediately started these online Parley debates. Like every day she debates with people online. And it's saved us. It has saved us because that girl is so extroverted. I thought we would all have our throats slit, like didn't know how we were going to make it. And she gets her needs met, by debating with these people. And so there's that. We're doing a Ziggy tournament, which is online. And now NCFCA they've announced that they're going to do an online tournament this summer. So
Oh, wow.
maybe not. I don't know.
Cool.
We'll see. I don't know the details because I don't check my email more than necessary because I get tired of the screens too. So, Kieran,
Hi, Drew.
good
Hey.
to talk to you guys.
Bye, Rochelle. It's funny, I'm going bye because she's on the bottom. Bye.
Thanks, River, for getting in the screen.
There's Henry.
How long have you guys been waiting for us?
Since 30.
Too long.
Just
I
ignore
didn't know
him.
until a couple of seconds ago that we were supposed to start at 3:30.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
It's
That was
okay.
totally my fault. I totally confused everybody. Sorry.
It's okay.
Hey, Piran.
Hi.
Doing okay today?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Eh.
Hey, River.
Hi. Very hard to lean in.
Hey, Pierre, can you get your screen down so we can see your face more than, there you go.
There you go.
Made it.
That's good.
Oh, okay. Somebody wants you to sweep and move doors behind you. They're bringing you the mop.
Okay, so you guys ready for science right now?
Mhm.
Are we all mentally there? Maybe. We have to work real hard. All right. Will you pray for us, Mrs. Harris?
Okay.
All right.
God, thank you so much for technology, God. Thank you for smiling faces. Thank you for sunshiny days. God, I know that you are stretching us and doing great works within each of us. God, just let us lean into you and just trust that you've got everything under control. And we do pray for just healing in our land and just spiritual healing all over. Let us use this time wisely. God, I thank you that Piran and Truett and River are still doing general science and they're still getting to see your amazing and wonderful creation works. God, we thank you for Miss Beard that has put so much time into this and getting us all organized. We just can't wait for class today. God, we give it to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. So what have you guys been doing this week? Hanging out at home?
Pretty much.
Hey, me too.
What? No.
Yeah, anybody allowed to go to the store?
Not really.
No.
Our
No.
parents are the only people that have been leaving the house.
My
Who?
mom goes to the store every 2 weeks.
Yeah. I went last week. I went with my husband and we loaded up. So I think we're good for 2 more weeks. So it's unusual that we don't go to the store every third day.
Even like toilet paper, you're good?
Yeah, because, okay, it was weird because my husband, he was going on a trip right before spring break. And so he was leaving us and he was feeling a little guilty. And so he stocked up our house and all of these food and everything. And so we were really good. And so 2 weeks ago, I went out and I got some toilet paper. So I haven't even opened the new package yet. So that's
Wow.
the only reason I actually have paper towels and toilet papers because my husband felt guilty about going to his trip.
That's hilarious. Oh my goodness.
Okay. I feel like we need to announce the elephant in the room. What's with the flowers behind you, Mrs. Harris?
Oh,
Oh, good.
I forget that they're there. Those are my theater. They're flowers. So I'm kind of picture your dad. Your dad's doing all these videos and stuff. Pretty much that's me upstairs or down in my living room. I've got troll hair. I've got these flowers. I've got a bridge. I could pull out my bridge and my other stuff. It's over here.
I want to see the troll hair.
Well, I delivered it to all of the students' porches last week.
Oh,
Wow.
So it's really cool. I know I should can I screen share? Let's see.
and I know.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't screen share.
Oh, blocked me.
One of those security things.
So, okay. So if I do this, can y'all see that here?
I think
Yeah.
so. Oh, yeah.
That's
Thank you.
hilarious. Is it made from what's that fabric, that little
So
filmy fabric?
that's tulle. And literally I went to the dollar store and they had these humongous birthday hats that I cut
Yeah.
off the rim and then I tooled it.
Oh, I see.
Well,
Yeah.
So they tooled it, and then I had to complete it with the tie and the flowers, and so they all have it.
Oh
So-
my goodness. It's such a shame that you all cannot do that show because
I
that hair
know.
was great.
So yeah, like I had like there's seven trolls.
Wow.
They were
I
so
love that.
so yeah, so Truett, like my house is one big craft and PBS special, just like your dad.
What is your all's dad doing?
Our dad is a children's entertainer, so and
Ah.
he normally goes to schools to do shows, but now because of the whole thing, he has to take videos and he puts them on YouTube, his website.
Oh wow, that's cool. I had no idea.
Yeah, he's
Oh.
funny.
I have got, yeah, I want to check that out. So Mrs. Harris was looking in the Dropbox, and you want to explain what you saw?
So when you guys upload them, Pierens, your papers are coming through separate, which is great. Truett and River, are you guys loading it through a zip file? And then, like, it came through a zip file, but I can't really see I can't decode whatever came. But then there's some duplicates. It comes through more than once. Like I got like 3 study guides from River. So I'm just wondering how you guys are. I guess your mom is really doing that for you, right?
No.
No, we're doing it ourselves. I think what's happening is with like the study guide. So when I send you the entire study guide, and then you have to like flip through the pages to see the ones that I've done. Do you want me to just send you the pages that I've done?
No, I mean, that's fine. I totally got that, but it came through more than one time. And then it acted like I had other things that I couldn't open. So if you'll look on is that what Miss Beer's doing?
Yeah.
Look on the screen. And so, let's see. How will error so see River's study guide. She comes in, it comes
This one?
twice. Yeah, one is like just like a zip file, but it comes twice. So I'm just wondering, oh, look down there and then see the look at River Gardener, the written results. Is that from today?
Yes, it is.
So open
Yeah.
that because it says zip on it. Open it and make sure we can open it. Okay, open that. So that's what I got last time. And so it took me a while to find it, and I can download, like I figured a way, because Truett, you sent me your chemical weathering. It
Mhm.
just is really weird when it's in that zip file.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really see it.
So see,
It's
like,
kind of, you see how blurry it is and weird? I mean, it's kind of,
yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. Oh, I can read that one.
So that's what I did last time is I went through each one of those, and some of them have decoding stuff on them, and you're like, well, I don't know what was in that. But then I finally found it. So I don't know how, when you scan it, are you doing it through your like printer, or do you take a picture of it, or how do you scan it or upload it?
I do it on Pages and then put it in at Dropbox, and it will show me what files I want to put in, and then I press it, and then it has me write. It will tell me my name and stuff, and then I say okay, and then it sends.
Okay, so maybe we just don't have the same system, because I don't know what all that meta, and it gives me all these pages. I just want to make sure I'm getting everything that you're really sending. So, but see, Miss Beard, you're seeing what I'm seeing, right?
I can't even read it. It's all blurry. Is
Hmm.
that do you think that's just from when you took a picture of it, that maybe you were shaky a little bit and didn't get a good picture? Or like this one's better, it's still a little blurry.
But see, I went through something where I printed out her Bible errors, and I got to a screen like this screen right here. I got to where it was clear. It was just, you had to go through so many to find it.
Yeah, so here, yeah, so it's like, so this is the third time I've opened that up, and the first time it was super blurry. The second time it was a little bit better, and this third time I can read it. So I'm like,
And I think I had to actually push download for it actually to come out clear. Okay, so, well, I'll keep looking for it, but I guess your list for today, Miss Beard, is what study guide is due. You could do test corrections and then 6.2 and 6.4. Is that my list?
Let me share this. Let me share what's due today.
Okay.
Yeah. Here we are. Nope, not there. Sorry. Let me go back. Okay. Let's see. Were you guys, okay. Where am I? Okay. Oh, here we go. Sorry. So let me share this. Okay. Let's start at the beginning. So, so can you guys see
So
what's,
Yes.
okay. Let me start it right there. Okay. So we got the study guide, pages 21 to 29, the module 6 tests. And then 6.1 and 6.3, just show those to us, the completed experiments, just hold it up. You know, here's my experiment to get credit for doing it. And then, so then last call for this week's study guide and 6.2, which should be your written results along with your before and after drawing. And then 6.4, which is a complete lab write-up. And so that was due today. So 6.2, 6.4 study guide, and module 5 test corrections. Those were what were due today.
Mhm.
okay. Perfect.
And then so next week, the only thing they'll be uploading next week is the study guide and the module 6 test.
Okay. And then how are, like, you sent them the module 5 test last time, right?
I did, yeah. Well, you know what? I didn't actually have to send them. They, you know, they all have the solutions manual, so
Cool.
they just they had it already. So I didn't have to send it.
Cool. Okay. All right. Well, I just want to make sure my list is accurate. So when I'm going through all of that, like true, like you turned in chemical weathering like before, like last week. Why'd you do it early?
Was it did they turn it in when, like, since the last class?
Yeah, like when I got the tests and everything to grade, like Truett's chemical weathering was in there.
Hmm.
So did you upload another one, Truett, today?
What chemical weathering thing are you talking about?
Your lab 6.4.
It might have uploaded again, but that's weird because I uploaded it on Tuesday, I think.
Sorry, I'm here. I was just trying to work on my lighting.
I uploaded my 6.4 lab this week.
Oh, so maybe one Monday when I was trying to figure out all those things, maybe that's when you were putting it in there. Okay, makes sense.
Okay. All right. So you guys see what's due next week?
Yes.
Study guide, module 6 tests, 6.1 and 6.3. Just show me. Just bring it and show it, and that's it. And so then last call for the written stuff, the written labs, 6.2 and 6.4 for next week. I mean, yeah, that's the last call. Those were due today, and any module 5 test corrections and the
Okay.
study guide.
When do we turn in the geode?
I think, oh, you know, I didn't put that here. I think I had it
Oh, the 30th?
the 30th, yeah.
Okay.
Have you started it?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, how's it working?
I can't really tell. My mom accidentally took out all the water today.
Oh, yeah, that's always a common problem with leaving things laying around on the countertop.
Yeah.
Where are the instructions for the extra credit geo thing?
I emailed those. I can email it to you again this week if you need it.
Yes, please.
Okay, I will. Let let me write a note to myself. All right, I will email it again. I will email it again this week, so no
Thank you.
problem. Okay, anything else? No? All right, you guys ready to get started? Are you
Okay.
staying for class today, Laura, or are you have to go?
I'm gonna jump off because I think that I will use this time before my next Zoom. I'm gonna go and try to print out all your labs. So
Oh.
let me ask this question really quick. Piran, Trude, and River, did you get your test back whenever I took the graded one? Did your parents print that out for you and show you? Were you able to read it and everything the way
Yeah.
I scanned it?
Mhm.
Yeah, I did the test corrections and everything.
Well, I just want to make sure when I scanned it too that you were able to read what I wrote on there, or it was clear what was wrong and what was right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes.
saw it.
Okay, perfect. Then that's probably, I'll do that for your labs as well, so that you can, well, 6.4 is a complete one. So I'll do it 2 papers. Your lab that I marked on, and then the little sheet that you usually see, I'll scan that too. So as long as that worked for your test corrections, then that's how you'll get your labs back too. So I will go and do that right now and hopefully get those back to you by tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, y'all have a great class.
Bye.
Goodbye.
All right, and she's gone. Okay, so all right. So you guys did. Sorry, I need to look and see. We'll just look at the book real fast. 6.1.
I have a question.
Okay.
Does our class end at 5? Because of the computer, it looks.
Possibly, since we started late. Is that okay? Or it might end a little after that.
Okay.
Do you guys have to be somewhere?
No, I was just wondering.
Okay. All right. So 6.1, growing crystals. Did you guys grow a crystal? Did it work?
Oh, yes.
It did?
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Piran?
No, it didn't.
It did not work? Oh, no. Okay.
I mean, you saw little particles on the string.
Yeah, you know, it occurred to me after you know, it was probably like Tuesday, and I was like, well, it's too late now. I usually include a little piece of paper that in the baggie that gives, you know, directions on making sure that your crystals grow well, and I didn't include that. I totally forgot that this year.
Oh, you put it in our bag.
Oh, did I? Oh, okay. Was it in yours, Karen?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So I just totally forgot it. So anyway.
I think why mine isn't growing like crystals is because I didn't have enough alum to get it cloudy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, or maybe you had too much water.
Yeah, probably that.
Yeah. Because that alum in that bottle thing, it's pre-measured for this experiment. So, okay. Well, the whole point of that experiment was for you to understand what something looks like when it's crystalline. And so here is some topaz, and it's crystalline, and you can see these are the shapes. This is, you know, how it's shaped when something is crystalline. I mean, you've seen enough just regular old rocks laying around to see a difference between a rock and this right here, this mineral, right? You can see it's crystalline. It's got sharp edges, and, you know, really well defined. It's not just a big lump of something, right? And so that's crystalline. Here's another cool example of crystalline here. This looks like rock salt. Crystalline. It's probably, I don't think that's rock salt though, so it's something else. So it's just got those sharp edges and the smooth sides, and so when you find a mineral anywhere on the earth, it's gonna be shaped a lot like this. It's gonna have, we get those minerals in rocks, and they've been a lot of times they've used them in a rock tumbler and smoothed them down and made them into little pretty rock shapes, right? But if you find a true mineral laying around in the earth, it's not going to be smooth and in a nice, pretty shape like that. It's going to be like this. It's going to be crystalline. So that's how you know the difference between whether or not you're picking up a rock or a mineral. So what is the difference between a rock and a mineral? So differences are minerals have no fossils, right? You're not going to find a fossil inside of a mineral, and rocks do. And of course, not every rock that you pick up has a fossil, but a lot of them do. That's where you find a fossil, usually in sedimentary rock. So minerals usually have a shape, and the rocks have no definite shape. Minerals color is usually the same, and rock's color is not usually the same. Usually it's, because it's a combination of different kinds of materials, it's going to have different colors and involved in there. We already said this, minerals do not have fossils and rocks do. But both rocks and minerals, and this is the one thing they have in common, both rocks and minerals are solid, and both of them are made of the elements from the table of elements, right? The only difference is when you pick up a mineral, you see the same mineral all the way through. It's the same thing, but if you're looking at a rock, you're seeing more than one mineral together. So, we talked about this already, about the geode, and I will send that paperwork this week. So let's talk about experiment 6.2. Did your all's bottle end up looking kind of like this? This is different stuff in here, but
Oh yeah.
end up looking a little bit, a lot like this. So the really cool thing is that water, we think of it as, well, especially since we live in Texas, right? We don't have rivers running through, or we have these little creeks that dry up in the summer, but so we don't always think about water and the kind of force that it can be on the earth. But water has the ability to separate sediments into layers. So this right here, this happened in this bottle because of the water, not because we have sand and pebbles and whatever else is in this one, but because of the water. The water is what facilitated this separation here in this bottle. And of course, we know that heavier objects are always going to settle first, right? And so that's what's happened here in this bottle. That's what happened in your bottles. So any questions about this experiment? We're all good?
Actually, just so you know, I don't think I have my drawing or my lab part on the uploaded thing, because I only found out about the lab part until the last second and didn't have time to do it. And then I made drawings. I made drawings, and then I lost them.
Oh no. Okay. I'll tell Mrs. Harris. I'm going to write this down. Okay, I'll tell Mrs. Harris, okay? So she'll know what to look for or what not to look for, okay? Any other questions? All right, let's go on to 6.3 and physical weathering. So we know that rocks form from sediments, right? And so rocks are turned back into sediments through physical weathering. so if you look at this picture here, let me get my little pointer. So right here, you can see that the roots of this tree are just having its way with this asphalt, right? And so as this asphalt breaks down, it's breaking down into smaller little pebbles, right? If you walked by there, you could probably bend down and pick up a rock and kick it down the road or whatever. Um, so that's what happens. Rocks are turned back into sediments through physical weathering. Have you guys ever had foundation trouble with your houses or known somebody who did?
No.
No. Well, I've known somebody who has, and so what happens is the concrete is basically sedimentary rock, and so our foundations are made from concrete, and so when rocks or concrete, when rocks heat up, they expand and they get bigger. And then, so you can see that would happen, especially during the summer. And one of the reasons why we struggle so much with foundation troubles here in Texas is because it's so hot, right? It gets so hot and it's hot for so long. So our foundations are expanding during the summer. And then all of a sudden, we go from it being hot and to cold. And so then as the foundations cool, they contract, right? Or get smaller. Well, you do that back and forth so many times. And after a while, it's going to start the foundation cracking and breaking down back into sediments. And that's when, parents have to fork over the big money to get their foundation repaired. And so it's no fun at all. And so that's physical weathering, and it usually happens because of tree roots. Usually plants are involved in that kind of a thing. So any questions about physical weathering?
No.
All right, so let's move on to experiment 6.4 and chemical weathering. So what happened with your steel wool?
It rusted.
Yeah, it totally rusted. So like here's some iron, chain link stuff, and you can see it's all rusted and nasty looking. And so it rusted. And what about your limestone rock? What happened to it?
You can see that it was breaking down, and
Right. Anything else? So yeah, so the vinegar, it's kind of a weak acid, and so it's definitely going to usually chemical weathering. Water is involved in chemical weathering. So the reason why we used vinegar in this experiment was just to speed things along, just so you could see what happens faster. So there are three. Oh, right, here's a picture. This is interesting picture of chemical weathering here. Here's this statue, and over time you see what happens. So there are three types of chemical weathering. Oh, sorry, okay. Here is our steel wool. And so this is called oxidation, what we just did with the steel wool. This is the kind of chemical weathering called oxidation. And so what happens with oxidation is oxygen combines with other elements inside, like in this, it's the steel wool, to form something new. And so what did we form with the steel wool? Rust, yeah. And so anytime there's any kind of physical weathering or chemical weathering going on, the new thing that's formed is not going to be as strong as the original thing. So here we have steel wool, and it's disintegrating into rust. And so what happened when you picked it up or touched it? Did you guys touch it? Mess around with it any?
So like rust. A few pieces like had broken off, and it was like really dark, and the vinegar.
Yeah. And you could probably, if you picked it up with your fingers, you could rub it between your fingers and it would just, fall away into nothing. So it's not as strong as the steel wool. And that's what happens with weathering, is that the new product that's formed is weaker than the original. Um, Another example of so this is oxidation right here. Another example of oxidation is an apple. You expose it to the air, and so it's the oxygen that's causing the oxidation. Then you can even see a root of oxygen in the word oxidation, so oxygen is going to be involved in that. So so when an apple turns brown, it's chemical weathering. It's the oxygen in the air interacting to the chemicals in the apple. There are also like pennies. You ever seen like a green penny laying around?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's probably not very many of those around these days anymore because they don't use copper to make pennies anymore. But
Really don't?
they don't. It's fake now.
Really?
It's a lot cheaper to not make them out of copper.
What do they use instead?
I don't know. I'll look that up. I don't know what they're using instead. But so here's this copper penny is turning green. So here we're mixing copper with oxygen to make copper oxide. And the Statue of Liberty, it's made of copper. And they didn't paint the Statue of Liberty green. The Statue of Liberty was originally this nice, beautiful brown coppery color. And of course, it's right there by the ocean. And over time, it has turned green because the copper and the oxygen have combined together to make copper oxide. So the Statue of Liberty is green. Whether we want her to be or not, she's green. We cannot get her original color back. There's also a really interesting video, if you guys haven't been on to the Module 6 for our class website yet, there's a really interesting video on the Sydney Harbor Bridge. Basically, they are constantly having to paint the bridge. Like, they start on one end, painting it, they paint, go to the other end, and then they go back and they have to start again. And it's a constant battle to keep the bridge from oxidation. And so it's an interesting video if you want to watch that. So another type of chemical weathering is called hydrolysis. And so what happens with hydrolysis is water or other liquids combine with substances in the rocks to form new substances, right? I mean, and just like with the rust, the new substance is weaker and can be broken apart easily. And so you can see the little holes here in this rock, and that's from chemical weathering. And so we saw an example of that with your limestone rock, right? And so what happens is the minerals in like this rock right here are reacting to the hydrogen in the water, and then creating something new and then floating away. So all rain is, hold on, let's do this one. Here's another one, chemical weathering. This is the third type of chemical weathering called carbonation. So what happens is all rain is slightly acidic, right? That's why we use vinegar in these experiments, because it's a mild acid, and so we're just trying to speed up the experiment, but all rain is slightly acidic. When I was in high school, the big thing was acid rain. We're all gonna die because of acid rain. We're gonna just, don't get caught out in the rain. Your skin will melt and you'll die. It was silliness. But acid rain was a big deal. Because they were saying the pollution from all the factories and stuff were making the rain more acidic than it should be, and blah, blah, blah. But now, of course, nobody talks about it. I don't know why. So all rain is slightly acidic. And so what happens is that water that contains uh, the water that contains carbonic acid, and that's what makes it acid rain or acidic, uh, that carbonic acid in the rain dissolves minerals. Um, and so you mix carbon dioxide plus flood or rainwater or moisture in the air, like if it's humid, uh, you get carbonic acid. And then that carbonic acid reacts to the minerals in the rock, and it weakens them and breaks them down. And so you can see here this tombstone. It's been out in the rain. It's been, it looks like it's in a forest area. It's probably a little bit humid there. You can look at the ground and see all the rotting leaves and stuff like that. So here it is after it's been here. So this person died in 1894. So you can just see how it's just been worn down from carbonation. And here they made it look pretty again, tried to bring it back to life. Anyway, so the most strongly affected are going to be limestone and marble from carbonation. So we are going to watch for experiment 6.5. We're just going to watch a video. It's kind of a hard experiment to do, you know, to do, period. So we're just going to watch a video. Let me get back to a different screen. Let's see. Oh, wait, what did I do? Okay. I don't know what I did. Let me try that again. Hold on. Okay. Working it. Sorry, my computer's being slow. Okay, let's see. Okay. Are you still with me? Sorry. Okay. Okay, here we go. So this is for experiment 6.5. We're just going to watch a video for it. Hold on. Okay. Can you guys hear it? You cannot hear it? Okay. Oh, that's a heartbreaker. Let me see.
I heard it at first.
Can you turn on subtitles?
I don't know. It's just a YouTube video. Let's
Heard it.
Looks, you see a little square that's captions.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just see real fast. I saw a thing the last time that said share computer audio, share audio. Share screen. Share computer sound. Okay, I think this should be it then. Let's try.
It occurs.
Okay.
Soil erosion.
Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Push play.
Soil erosion. It is a fact of nature and has been around for centuries. It occurs in cities and towns, farm fields, and forests. Is anything being done to protect the environment? Does anyone practice soil conservation? Farmers do, and it's really easy. By planting grass filter strips at the bottom of hills, by keeping last year's crop residue, which is the leftover part of the plant after harvest, on the field surface. In fact, many farmers will plant into the crop residue without plowing or disturbing the field at all. Some farmers use structures to catch excess runoff and get it off of the soil surface. What you see here is a man-made structure using a pipe inlet next to an earthen dam to catch surface water and move it underground through pipes. Let's take a look at how these methods work and why they're so important with a simple demonstration. This is a soil box with 3 compartments. The first compartment, on the left, has live grass with roots and soil under the surface. The middle compartment has corn residue on the surface, covering up soil. The third box is simply soil. The entire box is put on a slope to simulate a hillside. Now let's see what happens when it rains. As we pour water over the grass and soil, the grass acts as a filter for the water and a protective cover for the soil underneath. As we pour water over the corn stalks and soil, the corn residue acts in the same way. As we pour water over the bare soil, you see without any protection, the water erodes away the soil dramatically. You can see by looking at the jars, just adding grass or the previous year's crop residue to a hillside will improve water quality and will make advances in soil conservation. There will always be soil erosion because it is a fact of nature. But through the methods demonstrated here, great strides can be made to help protect our environment. So the next time you see a farmer with grass or crop residue on a hillside, you will know that the farmer cares for the environment and for a clean water supply.
Okay, so you haven't read through the 6.5 yet, so and so it is going to talk about erosion and stuff. So, sorry. It started playing the next video. So you're gonna read about erosion and what stops it, and so you can see through that video that we just watched how erosion is stopped through things with roots, right? Is the best way to stop erosion, to keep the dirt from flowing away, going somewhere else. So any questions about that? Pretty simple. Okay. So agents of erosion would just be water, always water. So we got rivers, we've got rain, we've got flooding, oceans. So even there's even erosion going on at the coast of oceans where the coast erodes away too. So wind is also an agent of erosion. I have some really cool pictures printed out somewhere in my science stash. I forgot to put them in a PowerPoint so you could see them, but there's some really cool rock formations in the Sahara Desert where you could see that the wind is going to pick up sand and carry it around, and so that sand hits up against rocks as it's flying through the air, and it slowly over time chips away at the rock formations in the desert, and so you end up with some really cool looking rock formations in the Sahara Desert. So we're gonna watch this video. I love it. It's about a time in our nation's history when we did not understand about soil erosion or taking good care of it. It was just farm, raise the food, make the money, and don't worry about the land. It's gonna do its own thing. And so we paid a price big time for that. So it I don't know if you've ever heard of the Dust Bowl. You guys ever heard of the Dust Bowl?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, so you're going to know all about the Dust Bowl by the time we finish here. And this happened because of erosion. So let me get this going. Okay.
Justice and Roland. American Experience is made possible by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation to enhance public understanding of the role of technology. The foundation also seeks to portray the lives of men and women engaged in
and it got closer.
P. Sloan Foundation to enhance public understanding of the role of technology. The foundation also seeks to portray the lives of men and women engaged in scientific and technological pursuit. American Experience is also made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Henry's going to watch with us.
Black blizzards, they were called. Dark clouds reaching miles into the sky, churning millions of tons of dirt into torrents of destruction.
We could see this low cloud bank, it looked like. You could see it all the way across. And we watched that thing, and it got closer. It seemed to kind of grow, you know, it was getting closer. The ends of it would seem to sweep around, and you felt like, you know, you were surrounded. Finally, it would just close in on you, shut off all light, you couldn't see a thing.
And it kept getting worse and worse, the wind blowing harder and harder, and kept getting darker and darker. The old house just vibrating like it was going to blow away. And I started trying to see my hand. I kept bringing my hand up closer and closer and closer and closer, and I finally touched the end of my nose and still couldn't see my hand. That's how black it was. A lot of people got out of the bed, got their children out of the bed, got down praying, thought that was it. They thought that was the end of the world.
Dust storms engulfed whole towns, ensnaring residents in a whirlwind of stinging, blinding dirt. Thousands would get sick from a mysterious illness. Scores would die.
When those dust storms blew and you were out in them, well, you spit out dirt. It looked like tobacco juice, only it was dirt.
When I'd see one of these black clouds rolling in, I remember thinking, why is it so dark? Why is it so dirty? What have I done now? What did we do to cause this?
In 1931, there was no better place to be a farmer than the Southern Plains. The rest of the nation was in the grip of the Great Depression. But in wheat country, they were reaping a record-breaking crop. Plains farmers had turned untamed prairie into one of the most prosperous regions in the country.
I came to Meade County, Kansas, fired with ambition to become a wheat farmer.
Lawrence Fobida had come from Nebraska's Corn Belt to start his own farm. He was one of those who believed he had found paradise.
Harvesting wheat was a thrill to me. The roar of the laboring motors and the whine of the combine was music to my ears. It was breathtaking. Hundreds of acres of wheat that were mine. To me, it was the most beautiful scene in all the world.
At the turn of the century, when settlers gazed upon the southern plains, they had looked out over a vast expanse of shrubs and grasses. The land was green and lush, and the soil so rich, an observer noted that it looked like chocolate where the plow turned the sod. The newcomers did not realize that they were witnessing only a brief moment in an endless cycle of rain and drought. Yet boosters and promoters lured in farmers with the promise of heaven on earth.
You have railroad companies and states putting out advertisements encouraging people to think of this land as a bountiful land. The state of Kansas put out posters showing watermelons the size of small automobiles, grapes the size of bowling balls, corn that you had to pick by going up a ladder. And people were encouraged to believe that this was the Garden of Eden, if they would only have the courage to go out and challenge the land.
Thousands of eager settlers took up the challenge, bringing farming techniques that had worked well in the north and east. Confident of rain, unmindful of wind, they plowed mile after mile of virgin sod. With the outbreak of World War I, Washington wanted wheat. Wheat would win the war. With record high prices, the promise of the land was coming true. Millions of acres of grassland would feel the plow for the first time. The race was on to turn every inch of the southern plains into profit. Appearing like giant armored bugs creeping along the horizon, tractors came to the fields in the 1920s. With a team of horses, a farmer could barely turn 3 acres of prairie sod in a day. With a tractor, he could plow 50. The great plow-up was underway.
So everybody got him a John Deere tractor or an old International and really went to plow in this country. And my dad was no different than the rest of them. You know, he'd run that thing all day, and when the sun went down, why, he'd come in and do the chores, and I'd go run that tractor till morning. Dad would work it in the daytime. He'd have everything serviced, plow greased, everything ready to go. When I got my turn, all I had to do was just get on there and drive that thing.
With so much bounty flowing from the southern plains, outsiders saw an opportunity to make a killing and began speculating on wheat. Suitcase farmers, they were called. Eastern bankers, businessmen, lawyers, who put in their seed and went home till harvest season.
They produce good. It looked like it's just a great thing that would never end. So they abused the land. They abused it something terrible. They raped it. They got everything out they could. And we don't think, except for ourselves, and it comes down to greed. You know, we're selfish and we want what we want, and we don't even think of what the end results might be.
I think that most of those people thought this is just what we might say hog heaven. It'll always be this way. So they kept breaking this country out. And they plowed up a lot of country that should never have been plowed up. They got the whole country plowed up nearly. And that's about the time it turned off terribly dry.
Whirlwinds had always danced across the fields on hot, dry days. No one took much notice that these swirls of dust were growing thicker, taller, and faster than usual. Then, in the summer of 1931, the rains stopped. fields, leaving the land naked and vulnerable to the menacing winds. But no one was prepared for what was to come.
The winds unleashed their fury with a force beyond my wildest imagination. It blew continuously for 100 hours, and it seemed as if the whole surface of the earth would be blown away. As far as my eyes could see, my fields were completely bare.
As dust enveloped the atmosphere, it got into the eyes, the nose, the mouth. Breathing became difficult. The Red Cross issued an urgent call for dust masks, especially for children.
So we'd wear face masks in school and doing our work and so forth. It'd be a gauze mask, and you could never seem to get a real good breath from that. And you often wondered, will I get enough oxygen to my system? Will this be damaging?
Residents grabbed any bits of cloth to cover their faces. The plains began to resemble a World War I battlefield, with dust rather than mustard gas fouling the air. Where grain once grew high as a man's shoulder, dazed farmers walked out over their beaten, blown-out fields. It had taken 1,000 years to build an inch of topsoil on the southern plains. It took only minutes for one good blow to sweep it all away.
Well, after a dirt storm, the ground would just be bare where it had blown all the topsoil away, and then it would be mounds over where the fence rows had been. So we didn't have much except just bare old hard ground. It was a bad time.
100 million acres of the southern plains were turning into a wasteland. A circle encompassing large sections of 5 states in the nation's heartland. The panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma, western Kansas, and the eastern portions of Colorado and New Mexico. A journalist traveling through the region called it the Dust Bowl.
The farmhouses looked terrible. The dust was deposited clear up to the windowsills, and these farmhouses cleared up to the windowsills. And even about half of the front door was blocked by this sand. And if people inside wanted to get out, they had to climb out to the window, get out with a shovel and shovel out the front door. And there was no longer any yard at all. There was not a green sprig, not a living thing of any kind, not even a field mouse, nothing.
Convinced that the storms were a freak accident, that the rains would soon return, residents could not imagine that they had entered a battle that would last a decade.
The next morning, they'd still have that dust settling in the air, but there would be the sunshine and all again, but then everything would just be covered in dirt. Everything was full of dust. If you were cooking a meal, you'd end up with dust in your food, and you would feel it in your teeth. You'd start to eat, and when you would drink water or something, you would grit down, and you always felt like you had grit between your teeth, you know. It felt terrible.
The next day, when Mother and my grandmother started cleaning out the house, they were taking the dirt out in buckets full. They were scooping it up onto wheat scoops, which are pretty good size scoops, and carrying it out into the yard.
The dust was just like face powder. It was so heavy and thick. It wasn't like sand. It was just real heavy, like face powder, only it was real dark, almost black.
To the astonishment of residents, the dust kept coming. In 1932, the Weather Bureau reported 14 dust storms. The next year, the number climbed to 38. People tried to protect themselves by hanging wet sheets in front of doorways and windows to filter the dirt. They stuffed window frames with gum tape and rags. But keeping the fine particles out was impossible. The dust permeated the tiniest cracks and crevices.
We just had a lot of dirt. I just grew up with it and thought that's what life was all about.
The drought persisted, made worse by some of the hottest summers on record. Windmills provided drinking water from deep wells, but the fields were bone dry. Still confident that the rains would return, farmers continued to plow. Out of this blast of dust, one observer wrote, the men of western Kansas whistle and go right on sowing wheat.
If Dad was in the field, we were always afraid. You know, we didn't know whether Dad could get in or not because the dust was so bad. Dad always had a tendency, like most men did, I guess. They would stay in the field until the storm got there. So Mom and we kids were at home watching, waiting for Dad to come in, thinking he would surely come before the dirt hit. And usually he didn't. And then we'd have to worry about him getting in. And worry was part of my makeup, so I worried about him.
1934. The storms were coming with alarming frequency. Residents believed they could pinpoint a storm's origins by the color of the dust. Black from Kansas, red from Oklahoma, gray from Colorado or New Mexico. As the storms rampaged across the land, they unleashed another destructive force.
I can remember when Dad had a good wheat crop growing and it blew terribly hard for 2 days. At the end of that 2 days, static electricity, the electricity in the air, had completely killed the wheat crop. All of that green wheat had just turned brown and was dead.
I had a little garden and I had me some watermelons, and I'd carry water with a bucket out of water. And I remember I went out that evening, water, and I had some little watermelon about as long as a little finger, just pretty and shiny, little fuzz on them, you know. And went out the next morning after one of them sandstorms, and there the watermelons, vines whipped around them little melons, just black as tar. It completely just, because of static electricity and then that continuous wind.
For farmers, it was going on 3 years of planting with little to show for it. The hard times were beginning to take their toll.
I can remember looking at Dad, and he'd be laid back in his big chair, his old lounge chair, you know, with his feet up. And usually one of the kids on his lap, but he would just be, you know, kind of looking off into space or something. You could tell. You could tell by his attitude if he was depressed.
My mother, she'd be walking the floor, and when she got nearly crying, her chin would draw up, you know, and she'd wring her hands and say, oh, the wind, the wind, the wind, and she'd just cry because she realized the condition things were in. I didn't. I just thought, well, it's dry and the wind's blowing, the sand's blowing. But she realized how Dad was having to work, what little he's making, and we was about to starve to death.
We had meager food at that time, everyone did. And we lived literally on cornbread and beans, and that was our main meal. And at night, we just have cornbread and milk, but so did everybody else. In fact, I felt like we had good food compared to a lot of people.
Outside the Southern Plains, few grasped the full measure of the disaster. In Washington, the Dust Bowl was seen as just another trouble spot in the nationwide crisis of the Depression. government began offering relief through Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal.
My dad was really proud. He thought it was charity to take help from the government, and for a long time he wouldn't, even when government programs came in, you know, in relation to his farming, where he could have been paid for certain farming practices. But there was quite a while that Dad wouldn't do it.
The sturdy people who settled this country were not leaners, residents insisted. Yet most had no choice but to suffer the humiliation of relief checks and food handouts.
There was a time when there was canned food that was available to people who were in the situation that we were. We were poor, I guess. We didn't call ourselves poor, but I guess we were. And but Dad wouldn't. He wouldn't let Mom get it. I think Dad would have let us eat pretty poorly before he would have accepted any help. He thought that it was his job. He was a breadwinner of the family, and it was a disgrace for him to let someone else come in and take care of his family, and he felt like that's what was happening.
Piece by piece, farmers were losing everything they cherished. In the fall of 1934, with livestock feed depleted, the government began to buy and destroy thousands of starving cattle.
Each and every day got worse, and you couldn't see no end. You couldn't see anything of any improvement. And the government come in and took the cattle and killed them, pay $16 for a cow and $3 for a calf. When that was gone, and you didn't have anything hardly left.
Of all the government programs, cattle slaughter would be the most wrenching.
Well, that cow, you'd milked her, you see her big old kind eyes, and she furnished you milk and food, and then see them just take a liter off. You knew that was the end of her. That was the end of her life. Well, when was yours coming? You know, it was pretty sad. Sure.
With the southern plains becoming more desert-like with each passing month, residents themselves were beginning to wonder whether the only difference between the Dust Bowl and the Sahara Desert was that a lot of damned fools were not trying to farm the sands of North Africa.
I believe any man must see the beauty in mile upon mile of level land where the wheat is waist high, sways to the slightest breeze, and is turning a golden yellow under a flaming sun. It was evening when a huge bank of dark rain clouds formed in the northwest. As the storm approached, I could feel its coolness, smell it, almost taste it. I waited in suspense, looking, hoping, praying for rain. But the rain did not come.
In 1935. After years of drought and dust, the land was now being destroyed by another kind of plague. Hundreds of thousands of starving jackrabbits came down from the hills, devouring everything in their path. Dust bowlers were forced to begin an extermination campaign. Almost every Sunday, people gathered to take part in rabbit drives.
When we first came over the hill there on this one drive, there were a big line of us. It just looked like the country below us just all began to move. Looked like a herd of sheep, but it was jackrabbits. The first rabbit drive that I ever witnessed was with shotguns, but that was kind of dangerous, so then they decided later that they'd have some more of these rabbit drives and would just use clubs. So they would form lines of people, and these lines of people would march down through that country and come together and funnel these rabbits into those pens.
And any that tried to get back by you, which would be a lot of them, why, you were supposed to knock them in the head with a club as they came by. And then after they got them all in these pens, why, the young fellows would get in those pens with these clubs, which was like an old axe handle or something like this, and just club them to death. I can imagine, you know, what the Humane Society would say about that now. Whew.
You could hear the rabbits screaming, you know. That's what was scary to me. I think that sound affected everyone. I know it sounded terrible to me as a little girl. And I'd think, sounds like a baby crying or squealing or, you know, being hurt. It was really sad. And then this dirt storm was coming in at that time. But it was starting to get dark. And, you know, some people felt that was the wrath of God coming up on them when they'd kill these rabbits like this.
April 14th, 1935, was the worst day of them all. The day no Dust Bowler would forget. The day they would call Black Sunday.
Everybody tried to get out there. Everybody was scrambling to get out to their vehicles and find their families. It looked real black as it came in, just big old rolls just coming in.
As the dark clouds approached, there was an ominous silence. Minutes later, the stillness was shattered by thousands of birds fleeing before the avalanche of dirt.
And back in the north, there's just a little bank, like about 8 or 10 feet high. But it had one of those headers out on each end, you know. And I did a few things there around the chickens and everything, went back in the house, and I said, Dad, we ain't going to be able to go to church tonight. And he said, why? And that's how fast it's traveling.
My dad went into the kitchen when that dirt was blowing the hardest. The wind was really whipping. And I can remember my dad going in there and taking hold of those 2x4s. And his hands would move up and down 5 or 6 inches. This wind was whipping so hard. And I thought to myself, this thing may blow away.
When the storm hit, my father just grabbed us. I remember Daddy taking me, and he set us right with the car, and he said, stay there, don't move. Well, I wasn't about to move. And so then the neighbor man was crying, and his family was all crying. And so Daddy went over and tried to help him, and he was sticking his hanky in the radiator, you know, and putting it on his face, and he'd say, oh, God, we're going to die. He said, we're all going to die. And Daddy finally just said, hush, you help me take care of these kids. That's when he told him, he said, you get your family in your car, and I will bumper you home.
Terrified residents tried to drive through the blinding dust. One Kansas farmer, disoriented, drove his car off the road. Searchers found him the next day, suffocated.
My dad thought that we should stop and pick up this neighbor and her baby. And it hit just about the time we were getting out of the car to go into the house. And this woman was hysterical. She thought she should maybe just go ahead and kill the baby and herself because it was the end of the world. And she didn't want to face it alone. And so my dad quoted Bible scriptures to her to prove that it was not yet time for the end of the world. That he had no idea what this was, but it was certainly not the end of the world.
After Black Sunday, others turning to the Bible found support for their worst fears. The Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust, they read. From heaven it shall come down upon thee until thou be destroyed.
The spring of 1935, the wind blew 27 days and nights without quitting. And I remember that's when my mother I thought she was going to go crazy because you got desperate. Because if the wind blew during the day or during the night and let up, you got some relief. But just day and night, 24 hours, one 24 hour after the other, but it's 27 days and nights, the spring of 1935, that it didn't let up.
Living on the plains was becoming an act of sheer will. The dust was beginning to make living things sick. Animals were found dead in the fields. their stomachs coated with 2 inches of dirt. People spat up clods of dirt, sometimes 3 to 4 inches long and as big around as a pencil. An epidemic raged throughout the plains. They called it dust pneumonia. Many residents tried their own home remedies.
Skunk grease. We had a neighbor that trapped skunks, and he would save the fat and render it out, and supposedly that skunk grease, skunk oil, was penetrate your chest better, but we never liked to use it.
Mother would give us sugar with a drop of coal oil on it or a drop of turpentine, and this would clear the phlegm out of our throats.
Mom would mix kerosene and lard. And nowadays we have Crisco, but then we had lard, you know, and she would mix those together. I suppose it would have blistered if they hadn't used lard in it, but she'd rub our throats. Oh, we'd be covered with it, and I hated it because it would stink so.
In 1935, 1/3 of the deaths in Ford County, Kansas, resulted from pneumonia. Children were especially vulnerable.
I guess I was sicker than I ever realized because I got delirious. I was out of my head. I can see to this day those merry-go-round horses coming out of the ceiling. You know, they're just like this, just like a merry-go-round horse goes. And I say, Mom? She was always there by my bed, it seemed like. I say, Mom, those horses are going to hit you. She said, you better move your head. And she'd move her head over. I said, boy, that one like to got you. And so I don't really know how sick I was, but I was pretty sick. I think she thought a time or two I wasn't going to make it.
I had a little brother that had pneumonia 3 times, and I've always felt it was caused from too much dirt. I remember Mother gave him his medicine in the spoon. I stayed in the room with her because we had to sit up with him all night. And she put this medicine in a spoon and put it in his mouth. And he swallowed it and laid back in her arms. Excuse me. But I'll never forget how that affected my mother. She started screaming, and she just held him so tight. And even though she had several children, you know, you have people say, well, you have several children. If you lose one, it won't matter. That's not true. Because this affected Mother in a way that she was never the same again. I cried myself to sleep, I think, every night for a year because of losing him. But I think the worst thing about that was that I was the one that brought the measles home to, you know, I was in school and I took the measles and I came home with him, and if he hadn't got the measles, he might have come out of it, but they said pneumonia and measles, they never did.
By the end of 1935, with no substantial rainfall in 4 years, some residents were giving up. Dust bowlers watched as their neighbors and friends picked up and headed west in search of farm jobs in California. Having packed their meager belongings, they didn't even bother to shut the door behind them. They just drove away, their eyes fixed on the uncertain road before them.
Many of them came by the courthouse, and they'd come by to see me and say, Judge, you know, we've reached the end of our rope. We don't have anything left. We've got to get out of here. And they'd say to me, you know, we need a second-hand tire pretty bad. Well, of course, I always signed orders authorizing the local filling stations to give them a cheap second-hand tire, cost about $3.50, and a tank full of gasoline. And they were very pleased about it. But I'll tell you, they were gaunt, tired-looking people. I felt very sorry for them. The whole family, the wife, the kids, they were tired-looking people. People that you could see that felt rather hopeless.
Throughout the country, word spread of a mass exodus from the plains. In all, 1/4 of the population would flee the region.
We hated to see anyone leave. There were so few close neighbors or close friends or relatives, and we hated for them to leave, but we all told them to be sure and write us from California. We were all afraid we'd never see them again, you know, when everyone was leaving the Panhandle.
Lots of people left. The family west of us left, and they had kids that we played with. There was two families east of us that left. One of the families was one where the young man died with the dust pneumonia, and they moved away.
As people abandoned the southern plains, tight-knit rural communities began to unravel. Banks and businesses failed. Schools shut their doors. Churches were boarded up. Yet even with the world crumbling around them, most Dust Bowlers chose to stay.
Dad always lived with hopes. He next year, I failed this time, but next year will be better. And I never did see him have the look of giving up or quitting. He always stayed in there and seemed that he's going to make it some way or another. If anybody made it, he'd be one of them, he thought.
No one understood the tenacity of Plains farmers better than John McCarty, the editor of the Dalhart Texan newspaper.
John McCarty was a great booster. He was always saying that one of these days the rains will come again and this land will bloom like a rose. And he was good at getting that message across.
A week after the infamous Black Sunday, McCarty created the Last Man's Club. Urging Dust Bowlers to grab a root and growl, the young editor issued a call to arms.
The Last Man's Club was one of John McCarty's efforts to build up courage in the minds of the people. And all of us who joined, I think my number was 31, we all had to sign a pledge. And the pledge read something like this: in the absence of an act of God, serious family injury, or some other emergency, I pledge to stay here as the last man and to do everything I can to help other last men remain in this country.
In states north of here, people are moving out by the thousands. Well, we're not quitting. Non-resident land is vicious land. Are we going to stay here till hell freezes over?
My father would often say, "Why would I go somewhere else? Everything I have is here, and it's gonna be better." I've heard him say so many times, "It's gonna be better."
On the outskirts of Amarillo, Texas, townspeople discovered a crow's nest made entirely of barbed wire. The only material the birds could scavenge from the lifeless terrain. Anything that could was stubbornly holding on. On the parched Texas landscape, explosives expert Tex Thornton proposed a novel solution to the region's woes. Explosions, he claimed, would excite the atmosphere and induce rain. Desperate to end the drought, a group of farmers and businessmen hired Thornton, giving him $300 to buy nitroglycerin and TNT.
He advertised himself as a rainmaker, and a few of the people in town believed that it might help. I didn't think that you could make rain that way, but of course I had to admit I didn't know. And like other people, I hoped maybe something good would happen, that we'd get some rain. Well, he tried 2 or 3 times. And one of the queer results about it, just a little bit following his last try, they had quite a little bit of snow. Not very much, but it was in May, so it was quite unusual. There might have been, maybe 2 or 3 inches at the most. And he got a lot of credit for that. Some of the people who had espoused his work thought that really that we were ending the drought here, but of course that was illusory, it didn't happen.
The summer of '36 was one of the hottest ever. Hundreds of square miles of bare fields absorbed the sun's rays like fire brick in a kiln. The wind was like a blast from a huge red-hot furnace, causing my face to blister and peel off. Perhaps I was learning stoicism, but I found myself hardening to disaster.
As the drought wore on, there were some who claimed that Plains farmers themselves held the key to their own survival.
We Americans have been the greatest destroyers of land of any race or people, barbaric or civilized.
Known as the father of soil conservation, Hugh Bennett was the leader of a new breed of agricultural experts. He argued that conservation techniques could restore farming to the southern plains. Bennett took his case to lawmakers on Capitol Hill. As he was about to testify, he learned that a great dust storm was heading towards the East Coast. The storm had already deposited 12 million tons of dust on Chicago, 4 pounds for each person in the city, and was poised to descend on the nation's capital. Bennett used every stalling tactic he could, managing to keep the committee in session until the dark gloom settled on Washington. This, gentlemen, he announced, is what I have been talking about. For the first time, Easterners smelled, breathed, and tasted the dust blowing off the southern plains. For years, before the dust storms, the federal government had regarded the soil as a limitless, indestructible resource. In a major shift, Washington now put its full weight and authority behind soil conservation. To promote the new message, the administration produced a provocative film about the causes of the Dust Bowl. Filmed near Dalhart, Texas, the filmmakers searched for a local farmer to play the part of an original settler. They found Bam White, Milt White's father.
They was wanting someone with a team and a plow to more or less demonstrate how they started breaking the plains up. So him with a team, just 2 horses, a single team, and a 1-bottom breaking plow. That way they could take and show that and have him let the plow go in the ground and start turning over sod, grassland that had never been broken up. So they come to him. And I know he put on his best hat, and he left about 8 or 8:30 that morning and got back a little after 11. And you never saw such a happy man in your life. He said, they paid me $25 for 2 hours work. He said, that's nearly a month's wages, and I don't see how they can afford to pay wages like that. He had no idea what it was all about, who they were, or what they was going to make of it.
High winds and sun. High winds and sun. A country without rivers and with little rain. Settler, plow at your peril.
So they had him being the guilty one to start it, of being the one that started breaking the plains out back in the early day.
100 million acres, 200 million acres, more wheat.
In 1936, the completed film was released across the country, and in Dalhart at the Mission Theater.
And their dad went to going across screen up there, him and old Tom and Dan's the name of the horses. There he was plowing, here he was sitting here with me, and I was looking at him, looking there, and I couldn't figure out how they was doing that, showing him that reel, him and the horses was being shown, and here he sat here by me. So it was quite a thing, and that's the first movie I ever saw in my life.
Last year, in every summer month, 30,000 people left the Great Plains and hit the highways for the Pacific coast, the last border.
Panicked by the flood of penniless refugees heading to the West Coast, a government report warned that for its own sake, the nation cannot allow farmers to fail. In 1937, Washington began an aggressive campaign to encourage Dust Bowlers to adopt planting and plowing methods that conserve the soil. But getting the farmers of the Southern Plains to change their ways would not be easy.
They came out with a lot of these methods, but most of these old-timers wouldn't do it. You know, finally they got where they'd pay them. You know, you could make $1 an acre if you practiced one of these methods. And that got a lot of them working on it because they needed that $1 an acre.
Once again, farmers ran their tractors from dawn to dark. This time, to prevent barren fields from blowing.
I felt I was becoming a slave to the land, but I held on to the thought that this land had to be stopped from blowing. Often I was so full of dust that I drove blind, unable to see even the radiator cap on my tractor or hear the roar of the engines. But I kept driving on and on, by guess, an instinct. I was making my last stand in the Dust Bowl.
1938. The massive conservation crusade had reduced the amount of blowing soil by 65%. But the drought dragged on. The parched land refused to yield a decent living. The proud settlers of the plains were becoming dependent on government work projects for survival.
Dad would get up in the morning and feed the horses and harness the team, hitch them, and go to work. And worked for the WPA. Drove the team. He got $1.35 a day, him, team, and wagon. And that was it. Weekend, say on a Sunday, we try to get him to play the fiddle. Well, when he's working on the WPA, hauling cleachy, his hands would be cracked from that cleachy. That alkali would just crack his hands. And he'd get that old fiddle out, and it makes tears run out to think he'd sat and play it with blood running out his fingers, just for our entertainment, you know.
Preachers teach the blessings of adversity, but I now believe too much adversity breaks a person down. Season after season, I had worked incessantly to keep my land from blowing, and no effort of mine had proved fruitful. Words are useless to describe the experience when the thin thread of faith snaps. My youth and ambition were ground into the very dust itself. I was finally ready to admit defeat.
In the spring of 1939, after the failure of 7 wheat crops in 8 years, Lawrence Svoboda abandoned his farm and fled, convinced that the Dust Bowl was creating an American Sahara. Six months later, the skies finally opened. Nearly a decade of dirt and dust was coming to an end.
When the rain came, it meant life itself. It meant a future. It meant that there would be something better ahead of you. And we as young people and sometimes parents, you'd go out in that rain and just feel that rain hit your face. It was a very emotional time when you'd get rain because it meant so much to you. You didn't have false hope anymore. You knew then that you was going to have some crops.
There'd be lightning back in the northwest. You see the flickering lightning. And Dad would say, that'll be in there about 2 o'clock in the morning. But the rains were so welcome and they smelled so good. And I could lay and listen to them pitter-patter on the side of the old house at night and really sleep because it was a wonderful feeling.
With the return of the rain, dry fields soon overflowed with golden wheat. The harsh years of the Dust Bowl had forced farmers to accept the limits of the land. But with fortunes to be made once more on the southern plains, that wisdom would soon be tested. In western Kansas, a group of farmers gathered on the steps of the local courthouse. One was hopeful about the future. People are thinking differently about taking care of the land, he said. Don't fool yourself, another replied. You can't convince me we've learned our lesson. It's just not in our blood to play a safe game.
Stay tuned for scenes from the next American Experience. But first,
So, erosion. I mean, that's an extreme example of erosion, like huge. But you can see what a big deal it is, why it's so important to take care of the farmland so that it doesn't just blow away on us. But that was them not caring for the land and then drought. That was like the perfect storm right there. So anyway, so any questions about anything we talked about today? Good. You're about to fall asleep.
How did they fix the Dust Bowl problem?
Do what?
How did they fix the Dust Bowl problem?
Well, there hasn't been a period of drought that big since the 1930s. There was in the 1980s in Canada, they have a plains area just like we do in America, and in the 1980s it happened in Canada again, where it was just no rain, and so I don't know that they necessarily fixed it, but I know that farmers have gotten better at like in the video of the experiment 6.5 that we watched, putting ground cover over, keeping something covering the ground. So, as you drive by any farm, any big field, the farmers use, look to see what's there. Did they leave it there, or did they, leave leavings of the last year's crops on there? Or there are seeds that you can also plant that grow during the winter, and they use that for ground cover. But you saw from the experiment, something with roots in it is going to hold the soil in place better than just covering it with, dead corn husks or whatever. So there's that kind of ground cover. I know a lot of farmers right now, they do winter wheat, which is good because that keeps things growing on it, or alfalfa, just different things that they can grow in the winter that is also useful. But so that helps farmers as well. So so that's kind of what they've done. Not everybody's perfect at it, but they've learned. This is my daughter Lydia. She's 21. So Lydia was in the very first general science class that I taught at Sim Science 10 years ago. So, and now she's a big college girl. So, but anyway, so I always apologize to her and anybody else I see from that first class. I'm like, I'm so sorry. That was a terrible class.
It wasn't the worst.
Maybe it wasn't the best
It was
either.
better than chemistry.
Well, yeah, that's not encouraging for these guys. They still have chemistry to do. So, anyway, okay. Well, if no questions, then I guess we will go until next week. So next week we will meet at 2.
Okay.
I promise. Okay. All right. Well, just email me with questions, and we'll see you later. Bye.